Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I thought we would make this really fun swing card, and we're going to be using a brand new set of images from Art Impressions, and it was going to lend itself perfectly to this swing design because it has a front and a back. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here's the little girl, and you can see you get the front and the back of her, and you also get the coordinating dies. So she's going to be perfectly symmetrical. So when you line up that front with the back, it's going to line up perfectly. Now I'm going to do my coloring using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and I'm using the Zig Blender pen to do my blending. I'll be listing all the colors in the upper left hand corner as we're going along, and I'm starting here with the dull blue. What's really exciting to me is I've been stamping for quite a few years, and back in the day Art Impressions had a line of front and back stamps that I just absolutely loved. I still have them. They were on wood mount back then. There was no acrylic stamps when those first came out, and so I do have a collection of them. They were so cute and sweet, and there were just so many things you could do with them. So needless to say, I was absolutely thrilled when these came out and thrilled to get a chance to play with these again. You do want to keep in mind as you're doing your coloring, obviously, that you want the front of her dress to match the back of her dress. So anything you do on the front, you want to repeat on the back. So here I'm going to use that same blue and finish the back of her little dress. Now, I probably didn't need to color in this entire dress, but I wasn't exactly sure where she was going to sit on the little fence that we're going to create. So I did color the whole thing in, but you could certainly take that into consideration when you're doing your coloring. Now there's a collection of front and back dies for this, and it's going to be called the Front and Back Window and Fence Set, and I'll be showing you that here shortly. And that set, we're going to use the fence today, and what that set will allow you to do is have the front and back of the image show through either the window or the little fence. So let me finish up coloring with this blue, and again I'm just tucking some of those shadows up underneath and then pulling it down. So now that we have the dress colored in, let's color in this little topper, this little, I guess like an apron topper that she's got on. And I'm using the pale rose to color this in. Now for the little basket that she's holding, there's that open area. So that's kind of fun because you could fill that with whatever you want. I'm going to fill that with some flowers. We're going to be using some really pretty pattern papers. I'll detail fussy cut out some little flowers and we'll pop those in there. But you could certainly use your dies to cut some pretty little flowers. You could fill that little basket for any season with some 4-leaf clovers for St. Patrick's Day, some little eggs for Easter, some little hearts for Valentine's Day. So I think that's a fun little option that you can pop in there whatever you want. You could even put a little critter in there, a little cat or a little puppy. That would be really cute. So you have a lot of options with that. So I'm going to keep that area open. I'm not going to color it in, but I will color in the little basket. So again, remember what you use on the front, you want to repeat on the back. So here I'm finishing off that little topper with the pale rose on the back side. And also, I really think what's really cute with this little girl and the little boy is that they are easily transformed when you add something to the outfit. So you could add some polka dots, which we will be doing a little bit later on. You could add a plaid design, some little stitch work, whatever you want to do. And also another way to approach these would be to stamp the image on some pattern paper and then fussy cut out the different pieces. So, you know, give her a little plaid topper or a little polka dot dress. So that's another option. If you like to do fussy cutting, that would be a really fun way to go about this. Now I'm using that mustard color on that little basket, and we'll finish coloring that in. And then here I did switch to the sugared almond pink, but in the end I didn't like this. So I'm going to go back over it with that pale rose. It really didn't matter because it was such a light pink, so I was able to easily fix that mistake. I'll do a little bit of blue up on the ribbon for the top of her hat, and then I'll repeat that blue on the back. And I will add a little stitching to that hat, to the ribbon on the hat a little bit later. You know, your white gel pen is your best friend when it comes to adding little polka dots and stitch work, and also adding some highlights. So if you feel like your coloring wasn't just perfect, you can add some highlights with your white gel pen. Now here's where I'm coming back in with that pale rose. Again, I just didn't like that sugared almond pink. I thought it was just a little too bright. I wanted to just keep it in a little bit more of a muted tone. So I'm going in and just adding some shadows, and then I'll repeat that on the back of her hat. And I'll just keep the bottom portion of the hat the lightest. So I'm tucking that shadow around that ribbon and then pulling it out towards the edges. And then I'll do the opposite on that little top section. I'll put the shadows down towards the bottom and then pull that highlight up towards the top. So this is a really quick, simple coloring on these the little girl and the little boy. It's not difficult. It doesn't take long. And then for her hair, I wanted to give her a blonde look just to kind of coordinate with some of the papers that we're going to be using. And I like to use the yellow and the beige together. I know it sounds like kind of a strange combination, but the beige tones down that yellow a little bit. And then with the beige, I'm able to give a few little shadows up under the hat and then kind of underneath her hair. And then for the shoes, I'm using the mid brown. I'll just add that darker color up under her dress and then on the inside of her shoes and pull that out towards the edges. I did the same thing for the back side. For her face, I'm using the sugared almond pink on her cheeks, and then I'll use that flesh color on her skin. And I'll just quickly blend that out. I like to add the pink first on the cheeks, then I kind of know where that color is going to be, and at first I work around the pink, and then at the end I blend that in. I just soften that pink color a little bit. So here's a closer look at the finished coloring. And now I've got my white gel pen, and I'm going to add those little polka dots that I talked about earlier, but again, you could add little flowers here or stripes, whatever you want to do. But this really makes things pop out and really personalizes these. So you can make it very unique. And then I'm adding a little bit of stitching to the ribbon on the front and the back. And then I can use it to create a few highlights here and there. And there you can take another look at it with those changes. So now let's grab the coordinating dies. And there are 2 dies with this set, one for the front, one for the back. And we're going to tape those down with a little bit of Post-it tape. And I'm running those through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And you can see that they're perfectly symmetrical. And I just love that. I think that's so cool. So now let's take a look at the brand new front and back fence and window set. And again, this is meant to coordinate with your front and back images. And you can see we can place her in front of the fence or behind. And we're going to be using that fence today. And then you also have that little window that you could do the same thing with. So they're meant to coordinate with these. And then in this set, off to the right there, you'll see that there's a rectangle and that arched piece. Those are to cut out the openings for your window and your fence. And then you have that little word spring, so you can use that sentiment and cut that out. You have 2 sizes of hearts, and then you have that cute little banner that can go across the window or the fence. So let's take some Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. And by the way, that's the cardstock I used to stamp and color her with. And to do my stamping, I used a Versafine Onyx black ink. So let's go ahead and run 2 of these through the Sizzix Sidekick machine. And then I'm just showing you, that's that rectangle that I showed you before. That's going to cut out the opening so that we can see through the fence to the other side on our swing card. So let's set those aside for now, and I'm going to grab this gorgeous paper from Echo Park. This is a 6 by 6 inch paper pad, and this is called Day in the Life, and it's volume number 2. And look at all these beautiful papers you get in here. They're all double-sided papers. You can see you get some really pretty little sentiment pages in here. So you could do a journal with this. This is really fun. It's got all the months too. You could do a little calendar. So I'm just laying out some of the papers. I don't end up using all of these, but I just grabbed what I thought went together the best. But I will start with the blue and the green, and that'll be kind of the sky that we're creating, and the green will be the grass. And here's where you see I have the dilemma of where should I cut this? I want to keep some of those backside pieces there, so I always struggle with that. But what I'm using here is the rectangle die from the Rectangle A2 double stitch dies from Art Impressions, and that is the 4th largest die. So it measures about 4 inches by about 2.5 inches. So I went ahead and die cut the blue paper from that, and then I cut a piece of the green paper, but all I really need is just a little sliver for the bottom for the grass. And I just wanted it to have that stitch border on it just like the blue paper has. So now I've got that rectangle that came with the fence and window die set, and we're going to cut the opening out. So I'm running that through the die cutting machine, and now I need to create a second piece just like this one. So I'm going to again die cut the blue and the green paper. So now that I've got that second panel, I'm going to cut that opening in the exact same place, and in order to do that, I'm just lining these 2 up. I'll take that die and place it right in that opening that's already there. It'll just slide right into place. It'll lock right into place. I'm using my Post-it tape, and I'll tape that down, and now we can go ahead and run that through the die cutting machine. So I'm running those both through, and that'll cut the opening out of that second panel. So now these will line up perfectly. So to create our card base, I've got a piece of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5. I'm going to score it first at 4 1/4 and then 2 1/8. So those are our 2 score lines at 4 1/4 and 2 1/8, and we're going to be cutting towards the left side. So we're only cutting half of this die. So the easiest way I find to do this is to cut a piece of scrap paper using that die. So I've just got a sheet of paper from a notepad. I ran it through the die cutting machine with that rectangle die. I've folded it in half, and now I know where the halfway point is to line up my die. I don't know, you could just eyeball this. I just find this an easy little trick to make sure I'm lining it up right at the halfway point. So I folded it in half, and I lined it up right on that 2 1/8 inch score line. And then I can put the die down. I know exactly where it needs to be. And then I can remove that scrap paper before I run it through the die cutting machine. So again, we're cutting to the left. Now I've turned the paper around, obviously, to run it through my die cutting machine. So I'm placing that plate on that 2 1/8 inch score line. And then where that plate is where it's going to cut. So I'm going to run that through. So that top plate is the only place that we'll be cutting this rectangle. So let me flip that card back around, and you can see that we cut from the score line to the left-hand side, and we just cut half of that die. So let's go ahead and fold the card in half. Again, this will be a standard A2 size card when we're done. And now I can go ahead and fold that other piece back. So it's kind of a zigzag fold here, or a fan fold. So I'll show you that here. So you can see that's how our little mechanism is going to work. So we've got our pretty pattern paper that's going to fit exactly on there. And we can go ahead and die cut out the opening now because we want to be able to see through the swing card to the other side. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm laying down that blue paper right in that opening, making sure it lines up perfectly. Then I'll tape down that rectangle with a little bit of Post-it tape, and then I'll run this through the die cutting machine. And I'm going to leave that blue paper right in place. It won't harm anything. I'm going to go ahead and run this through and cut out that little opening. So I'm just removing that Post-it tape, and you'll see that we cut completely through the cardstock. If you didn't, you can run it through a couple of times. Just make sure you cut completely through there. So now you can see that I have the opening, and my front and back will line up really well. So we've got that pretty blue paper on both sides. So I'm going back to the rectangle A2 double stitch dies. I'm grabbing the largest one. I'm running that through with that pretty floral paper, and that will be on the inside of the card. So I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and I'll just glue that inside. That's going to fit perfectly on the inside of the card. So that's what you'll see when you're looking through that little window opening. You'll see this pretty floral paper. So we can go ahead and glue this panel on the front. And you do want to make sure you use plenty of glue here and get it right up to those edges just to make sure. This is kind of going to be an interactive card, so you want to make sure everything's glued down nicely, nice and secure. So I'll line this back up with that opening and glue this in place. So just take a second or two just to make sure you line it back up nice and straight. Oh, and I do want to mention before I forget that all of the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below and also on my blog. And then I can do the same thing for the inside of the card. So I'm just opening up the card, and then I'll place this panel in. And just making sure that grass is down at the bottom. I almost put that in upside down, so I'm flipping it over. Just make sure we have that grassy border at the very bottom. So now let's go ahead and grab the fence, and we'll place that on the inside of the card. Now on this piece, I'm just placing glue around all four sides. Just again spreading that out with my finger a little bit, just to make sure I have plenty of glue. And then I'll line that up with that opening. And now I can do the same thing on the front side. So these line up perfectly. So this is really easy to do, to create these openings. These were created for the journal. There's the journal template die set. And these little interactive pieces were created to go and coordinate with that journal. So size-wise, they're perfect for your journals. If you've been following along with Bonnie's journal series, these are just perfect for that. So now I've glued my little girl together, the front and the back, and they line up perfectly. And now I'm just trying to decide, do I want her on the outside of the card or on the inside? But since I'm putting a little cluster of flowers in her basket, I think I'm going to put her on the front side of the card. So I use my scissors and I fussy cut out some of those little flowers. But again, you could use some pretty little floral dies or some little hearts or stars, whatever you want to place in here. I don't mind fussy cutting, so I usually don't mind taking the time to do that. And that paper had some really pretty colors, a combination of colors. So I'm going to just pop those right inside her little basket. And I'll just fill that up. And I put one up on her hat, on the ribbon of her hat as well. So you can see how cute this is. I just love her. She's so adorable. So again, I'm trying to decide where I want to place her. And I did decide to put her off to the right-hand side a little bit. And to make sure that I only put glue on that right-hand side, I'm just marking the center point of her, the top of her head, and between her shoes there. And I only want to put glue on that side of her. And I don't want to have it go over too far with the glue because I don't want the card to get stuck shut. So I'm just adjusting her a little bit. And then any excess glue that you might have on the back side, you do want to make sure you clear that or remove that as best you can. So now that I've got her in place, I can go ahead and, again, I'm just going to fuss with those little flowers, just popping those up a little bit for some dimension. And then I went to that butterfly pattern paper and I fussy cut out 3 little butterflies. But here again, you could use your stamps and dies to do this. I'm sure you probably have a cute little butterfly stamp and die set. But I thought the papers were perfect and I didn't have to color anything in. So I'm going to just pop 3 of those little butterflies on the front of the card. So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this brand new set from Art Impressions, and I'll list and link the little girl and the little boy down below in case you're interested in either one of those, and the fence and window dies as well. So if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.